I'm Richard, and I'm a developer evangelist with Here Technologies. I will be taking over 100 days of code from Shruti for the next 10 days. And in this video, for days 86 to 90, we will be looking at the MapImage API. Now, before we get started with that, if you don't know what 100 days of code with Here is, please look in the description of the video, where you will find a blog post which explains everything and will get you started on your own 100 days of code with Here journey. Cool. Now, the MapImage API is an API that gives you static images of maps. When we think of a maps API, we usually think of interactive maps, for example, on the web or in a mobile app. In fact, you've probably already built interactive maps for the web with our JavaScript API in previous weeks of 100 days of code. However, sometimes interactive maps don't work. For example, when you want to include a map in an email or, let's say, in an Alexa skill card. That's what the MapImage API is for. Based on the parameters you put in, it will generate a map image, literally a JPEG or a PNG for you. Okay, enough of the preamble. Let's get started with our tasks for this week. Our task for day 86 was to generate a map image using the MapImage API. The map was supposed to be centered on Manhattan. It was supposed to have a size of 1280 by 720 pixels, and it was supposed to be in PNG format. To get started with the MapImage API, we want to go to Documentation on the developer portal, then click on Maps. And then we see the third option here is the MapImage API. We click on that, and then maybe go directly to the API reference. So we're seeing there's a lot of different resources, and throughout the next couple of days of tasks, we'll be using several of those. But for now, we can just start with the basic map view resource. And you'll see you get all of the parameters listed here. And in fact, you'll note there are a lot of parameters. We'll explore quite a few of those in the next 5 days, but by no means all of them. So feel free to have a look here and experiment with a bunch of other parameters and see what happens. So for this week, I will be using a tool called Postman, which is a free tool you can just download yourself to play with the API. We're going to start a new API request. And what we need, of course, is first the API endpoint for the map view resource. We'll put that up here. So that is image.maps.ls.hereapi.com. And then at the end, we have map view. This is the part we might be changing later on in other days when we use other resources. What we also need is our API key. We should still have that from previous weeks. The same API key you used for all of the other APIs works here. If you don't have one yet, you can go to the developer portal at developer.here.com and sign up for a freemium account and get that API key for free. So what else do we need? We need to have the map centered on Manhattan. And if we go to the guide again, we'll see that there is in fact a parameter called CTR for center, map center point geocoordinate. So this is where the map will be centered. So we'll put that in, CTR, not CT, CTR. And then we'll take a latitude, a longitude from Manhattan. Now, a good way to get geocoordinates for anything is to go to maps.here.com, where you'll get a nice web map, and then you can go and zoom in anywhere you like, right click, and then under see more info, you can get a latitude and longitude. That's just a nice tip on the side. This is where I get all my latitude and longitude coordinates. Okay, so we have the map centered on Manhattan. We're using the MapImage API. We've got the map centered on Manhattan. So far, so good. Now, what we also need to do is we need to make sure the map image has the right size. Let's just send this off first, see what happens. And we'll see this is already a valid request for the MapImage API. We're getting a JPEG image of New York. But it does not have the right dimension. So we'll use other parameters. And there's parameters called W and H. And you can probably guess what they're there for. They're for width and height. So we're setting this width as 1270 and height as 720. Sending this off again. And we'll see we're getting a much bigger map image. Now, for some reason, Postman does zoom in the image a little bit, so it looks a little bit fuzzy here, and you have to scroll around, which is slightly annoying. But if you use this in another context, you'll get the correct image, and it'll look nice and crisp. Something else we were supposed to do is we were supposed to change the image format. So again, there's a parameter for that. It's called F for format. And the default is actually JPEG, so that's the value 1. But I prefer to use PNG, which is a more modern format and also compresses more nicely. So out of the box, you get better image quality. So I prefer PNG. So we'll set this to 0 for PNG. Click send. Doesn't look that much different, but this is now a PNG image. Okay, and that completes day 86. Let's move on and let's look at day 87. For day 87, our task was to create a satellite image map of Easter Island. We were also tasked with changing the zoom of the image, which is something we haven't done on day 86. And we were told to do it in such a way that the Easter Island, is fully visible in the image, but also zoomed in as much as possible so we can see as much detail as we can. So first, of course, what we need to do is we need to change the center of the image to a latitude and longitude in the middle of Easter Island. I've got this ready, so we'll see this is a very different latitude and longitude. We can keep the width, height parameters, we can keep the format parameters, that is all fine. But we need to add an additional parameter. This parameter is called T, and that stands for type. So the type of the map scheme that we set. Now, if we go to our guide here, you can actually see, if we scroll down to the parameter T, that there are a lot of options for you to set here. What we want is a satellite view. So we'll pick satellite day, which is value 1. So we'll set T to 1. Let's look at those two and see what happens. So we'll immediately see we are getting a very large satellite image of a very small island. So now we realize where we were asked to zoom in. And the parameter for zoom is unsurprisingly Z or Z or whatever, depending on which language you speak. And well, we can experiment with this a little bit. Let's see what happens if we set it to 1. Well, okay, now we see the entire world. In fact, because of the image size we've chosen, we see it multiple times. So we'll probably have to pick something much bigger. Let's try 10. So clearly the higher the value, the more zoomed in you are. This looks exactly like we just had. So apparently 10 seems to be the default value. So let's go a little closer. Let's pick 12. And that looks pretty good. We can try 13 to see if the island is still fully visible. But we realize, no, at that point we are slightly over the edge. So we'll pick 12. 12 is a good zoom factor. Get a nice satellite image of Easter Island. And that's it. We're done with day 87. Day 88. On day 88, we were asked to generate a map image of Disneyland and put a map marker on the castle in Disneyland. We were also supposed to change the color of that map marker to green and choose the theme of the map marker to pin. Okay, first, of course, what we have to do is once again change the latitude and longitude. I've already went to maps.here.com to find the correct latitude and longitude. We'll just copy that in here. Again, we can leave that parameter. We can leave that parameter. We can leave that parameter. The task didn't explicitly tell us which map scheme to use. I'm maybe going to go back to 0 for the default value because that might be more readable than satellite imagery. We can leave the zoom factor like this for now, though I suspect we'll have to zoom in a little more to properly see the castle. And now what we have to do is we have to add a marker. And that is done with the parameter POI for point of interest. And once again, we need to provide a latitude and longitude, which is different from the image center, where the map is centered. And I've looked this up on maps.here.com, and you'll see this is very similar, but slightly different to the center image. We can actually just try and run this, see what happens. And we'll see, okay, that is probably correct. We've seen Disneyland all the way down here, and we're seeing a marker there. However, clearly we need to zoom in much closer. So what we'll try is maybe 16. We'll try this, and that works much better, right? We've got a properly zoomed in image of Disneyland, and we can even see the individual paths and the little areas and the artificial river here. And down here is the entrance. If you've been to Disneyland, you'll come in through the entrance, walk down Main Street, and you'll look straight ahead at the castle. So that marker seems to be in the right spot. Unfortunately, it's currently blue, and we were supposed to change the color. So we'll pick another parameter. That parameter is called POIFC, Point of Interest Fill Color. And the color is basically given as a hex value of alpha, red, green, blue. So alpha, red, green, blue. We obviously want the alpha to be non-transparent, so we can set this to FF, the full value. We don't want any red. We want full green, and we don't want any blue. So FF00, FF00 should be okay. Let's give that a try. And the marker has turned bright green. Doesn't look very good. Maybe the default blue is actually a better choice, but our task was to make it green, and that's what we'll do. And now we need to change the marker's theme. And again, there's a parameter for that called POITHM, THM for theme. And 0 is the default value, which is, I think, what we just looked at. So let's try what the value 1 gives us. I believe this is the one called pin. This looks more like a pin marker here, so I think we got that correct. But we can, of course, also go here in the documentation and look at what the options are. So we see POI, THM. 0 is bubble, 1 is pin, 2 is hairstyle pin. So we've actually default is the hairstyle pin, which was what we saw earlier. So 2, and we switched it to 1. And that's it for this day. Let's see what day 89 brings. So for day 89, we were told to create a map of the Bermuda Triangle. And we were really supposed to highlight the Bermuda Triangle on the map by actually drawing a triangle on the map over the area of the Bermuda Triangle. We were supposed to take that triangle and give it a transparent blue fill color and a white outline. Now, so far we've always been using the map view resource. However, to draw polygons of any kind on the map, we need to use the region endpoint. So this is slightly different. Many of the parameters we've used will apply here too, except that we have the additional parameters of A for area and region coordinates that allow us to draw things on the map, and also additional parameters to customize how that polygon looks like. So let's go back to Postman. We'll just remove a lot of these. And again, what we need to do, of course, is change the way we look at the map. However, we no longer need to use the center parameter because the region endpoint of the API will automatically ensure that whatever you draw on the map is fully visible in the viewport of the map. So we don't need to put any center in. We can just remove that. And once we draw a triangle on the map, it'll automatically focus on that and zoom it in such a way that it is fully visible in the viewport. So we can actually remove the center. We can leave width, we can leave height, we can leave height, we can leave the format. We can also leave the map type, though I imagine that might actually look nice as a satellite image, but we'll leave it for now. And again, we can remove the zoom. That is no longer necessary. Instead, we have to start adding A parameters. So if we just use the A parameter, we can provide a list of latitude, longitude coordinates. And again, I've prepared these. The Bermuda Triangle sort of goes from Miami up to Bermuda and then down to Puerto Rico. At least that's how it looked like to me when I looked it up on the internet, which gave me these 3 lat-long coordinates. We'll put them in here. Once you look at a map where the Bermuda Triangle actually is, you realize that it can't possibly be a thing because it's just off the coast of Florida and along of a lot of Caribbean islands. And if the Bermuda Triangle was a thing, all cruise ships in the world would have long disappeared. So we've got the area here. Let's maybe just see if that works straight away. It does not. And it can't because we made a mistake. We forgot to change the map view to region because the map view resource doesn't actually have the A parameter, doesn't support it. And we moved the center, so it's just kind of defaulted to Berlin, which is the default value for center, actually. And it was like, I don't know what you want from me. Here's a random map of Berlin. Okay, so we're changing this up here. We're changing map view to region. We're trying this again. And very nice. We have a triangle. And conveniently, it is already in a transparent blue, because that's apparently the default value. However, just to be sure, we'll still set this as an explicit parameter, FC, which is for fill color. And remember, this is, again, a value that only applies to the region resource. So we can do this, say, 8.8. Again, this is alpha, red, green, blue. So we'll set, say, 8.8 for some transparency on the blue. And then we'll say no red, no green, and totally blue. And then we can also set the parameter LC for line color. And we can set this just as FFFFFFFF, because I hope I got the right number of Fs. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It looks right. Because we want no transparency and a full white color, so everything needs to be maxed. So we'll try this. We'll send this off. And again, we have, I think the blue has changed slightly because the default blue might be slightly different. You can still see it's transparent, and you can see the white outline along the triangle. That's day 89. Let's see what day 90 brings. For day 90, our final task was using the map image API to draw a route across the island of Crete in Greece. And we were supposed to draw a route from the town of Kissamos, which I believe is in the west of Crete, to the town of Sittia, which I believe is all the way over to the east of Crete. What we were also supposed to do is change the map labels to the Greek language, which obviously looks fairly different than the default English labels. So we'll be able to very easily see if changing the map labels has worked. Once again, we can go to the documentation and we'll see there is a routing endpoint. And this is, misclicked, a routing endpoint. So this is really cool because it actually automatically calls the routing API for you under the hood. What you can do with the map image API is obviously just draw a line on the map. So you could call the routing API, get the pairs of latitudes and longitudes from that for the route that you want to draw on the map, then take those latitude and longitude pairs and start drawing a line on the map, similar to how we've just drawn a polygon on the map. But with the routing resource, it can do that all for you in one step. So all you have to do is provide the waypoints. It'll automatically call the routing API for you, automatically convert that into a polyline to draw on the map, and then draw that on the map for you. So that's a really cool kind of feature. And you'll see there's a lot of other endpoints here. We're on day 90, so we're almost done with our exploration of the map image API. But as you can see on the left, there are a lot of other things, statistics, heat maps, and so on, that you may wish to go and explore yourself. It's actually a really cool, surprisingly powerful, and fully featured API. So let's go back to Postman. And once again, we don't really need to set a center or a zoom because, again, the map image API will ensure that the route it draws on the map will be fully visible through automatic centering and automatic zooming. What we do need to do, because we forgot it last time, is to change region to routing. So we use the correct endpoint. API key obviously stays. Width, height is fine. Format is fine. We can also leave the default map type value. That's all good. Now, obviously, those are specific to the region endpoint, and we want to remove those. Now, the parameters we need to use to put in waypoints are called, unsurprisingly, waypoint 0 and waypoint 1. And then we need to provide those waypoints, and I've looked it up. So Kissamos on the west is this latitude, longitude. Scythia in the east is this latitude and longitude. And, well, we've really only put in 2 waypoints. We've changed the endpoint to routing. Let's see if this works. And it does. You'll see we get a full route from Kissamos. You can see Kissamos here to Scythia up here in the east. And you'll see the route is fully correctly zoomed in and centered on the map. Now, you can modify this with colors and everything again, but our task was actually to change the map labels. And we'll see all of the Greek town and city names here are in English. So what we want to do is we want to change the map labels. And for that, there's a parameter called ML that should work across all resource endpoints, region, routing, map view. And we need to pick a language code, in this case, GRE for Greek. Let's send this off again, see if it worked. And you can immediately see now everything is labeled in Greek, which if your customer for the map would be in Greece, that would probably be very helpful and useful and nice. And that's it. We are done not only with day 90, we are done with this entire week. I look forward to seeing you again next week when I'll be back and we'll be looking at the transit API. See you then and happy coding.